Hey, this is Shane.
This is Simon.
And I'm Steven. Welcome to episode 2 of The Bucket. All right, guys. So how are we doing this week? Shane, you want to kick us off and tell us how the last week has been for you?
Good. Yeah. So, as far as work goes, which is probably what we'll mostly talk about here, working on some new, got some new estimates out for some new clients. Did a couple interviews for some new clients, and yeah, and tied up some loose ends on some old clients. Not on them, but the work I was doing for them in the last couple of weeks. So
Tied up some old
yeah,
clients.
tied up some old clients.
Finally
doing
found
okay,
garbage bags they
you
were
know?
picking up.
That's not the hard part. It's the tape that gets less sticky over use. I
Oh
just
my
got to buy a
God.
new roll of tape.
Oh, man. Completely random tangent, but however long ago, my wife and I started to try to watch Breaking Bad. And I don't remember how many episodes into the first season, they're trying to dissolve the body in a bathtub with acid, and then it just all goes through the ceiling. As soon as that happened, Alyssa was like, "Yeah, nope, I'm out. I'm done."
Wow. So I'm literally watching. I'm on season 3 right now, or season 2. Like the 8th time I've watched the entire series. I love it.
Oh,
Hey.
dang.
Oh,
Yeah,
Dang.
wow.
it's a yeah. And very, very, very highly underrated. Better Call Saul. Every time I bring this up to anybody, they're like, I don't know. I don't. Even my dad. My dad loves Breaking Bad. I'm like, you gotta try Better Call. You gotta get into it. It's just as good, if not in some ways a little bit better, because it's same writers, similar characters. They bring back some of the old characters. There's more story lines for some of the reasons why things happen in Breaking Bad, etc. And it's like, ah, it's so good. It's so good. And I watched that, I think, twice, maybe 3 times. Better Call
Nice.
Saul.
I tried to get
Good
into
stuff.
the later seasons of Breaking Bad, and I kind of lost interest. It just was so I don't know, depressing is the right word, but every episode it's just one S storm after another. They were not really getting anywhere, and I just kind of lost interest. But anyways, we don't have to talk about Breaking Bad this whole episode. So Simon, how you doing, man?
No, we do. Um, yeah, I'm good. I say I'm good. That's like default response. I haven't been too well this week. I've had some weird cold bug thing, but so I've been feeling a little bit under the weather. But other than that,
It's
things are
those
going okay.
post-vacation blues.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's coming out my nose, so I don't think it's just psychological. Yeah, but other than that, fine.
How was your vacation, by the way? We didn't talk at all about you did a really long stint of working, and then you took a week off. So was that actually a good?
Yeah, it was good. Holidays when you're freelancing is quite tricky. I think it's hard. If there's the choice between I can make a little bit more money or I can take a break. And I think that's kind of where my head was at for the previous few months of the year, because in the beginning of the year, I didn't have any work at all. So I was literally I need to make up for this deficit. And so it was way too long between breaks, and I don't recommend that.
Yeah, that's always hard. Whenever you own your own business or you're doing freelancing, it's really hard to turn off. So it's always there.
What about you, Stephen? How was your week?
It was pretty okay. My family made it through Hurricane Milton in Florida Wednesday and night and Thursday morning. So thankfully good there. I think the west coast of Florida was battered a little bit rougher, but they're on the East Coast, so they weren't too bad, and that's good. And then my family goes down to Disney all of next week.
Ooh.
So we'll see how that goes. But anyways, we fly down Sunday night, so good there. And yeah, I'm ready for my littlest one to go back to daycare finally. We've been keeping him home to try to keep him healthy for us to go on this trip. So man, the Monday we get home, I'm back, baby. He's going to daycare, and we're gonna actually have a full work day again, and I can't wait.
good.
So you're going on vacation and you can't wait to get back to go to work.
As
Doesn't sound like a vacation.
Okay, well, my wife doesn't listen to our podcast, so I'll be fine to say this, but like, I'm not the biggest Disney fan. I think it's going to be more fun because now Ollie is basically 3. So I think he will actually start to have fun. The last couple of times we've tried to go to Disney when he was younger, it was more chaos and crying than it was enjoyment for him because he like refuses to nap if he's out and about, won't nap in a stroller. So it was like this kid that needed 2 naps and then he would go 12 hours without one. It would just like eventually you just, okay, I can't do this anymore. We did it during the summer one time and it was like so hot that was just like miserable. So anyways, I'm hoping this time he gets to have more fun. We've been telling him, you're going to go see Mickey Mouse, and he actually gets excited. Like he understands the concept now. And so I think living vicariously through him will make Disney a lot more fun for me. Otherwise, I pretty much just go for like food and other stuff like that at this point. I mean, we live down there. We had annual passes whenever you go, like multiple times a month. Eventually, it's just kind of like, okay, it's just Disney. Like, I don't really need it anymore. So, anyways.
That's wild.
But yes, I am very ready for daycare with both kids again. Daddy daycare. Props to everybody out there that has a stay-at-home parent because it's hard, especially when you have a lot of things you want to be doing alongside taking care of your kid. It'd be one thing if it was like genuinely my job was to take care of the kids, but like I have so many other things. Like right this moment, I'm trying to help Simon with stuff, trying to help you with stuff. I've got other things, and I like can barely do it because the kid only gives me like 1 hour nap sessions. So, anyways, let me stop rambling on that. Well, let's jump into like the first meat of the conversation that we wanted to have today. Simon, why don't you just kind of kick off and explain to people the concept you've had to bring like employers, but jobs essentially to the platform?
Yeah. So, well, I think a bit of context is helpful, right?
Yep.
The platform right now, as it was, I acquired it back in November of 2023. So I've had it almost a year. And it was aimed at this idea of like a reverse job board. So developers would sign up to the platform, create a profile, and then teams, businesses would go on to the platform and try and find a developer and then reach out to the developer, which is kind of the opposite of the typical approach, right? As a business, you go, oh, we've got a role, we want to fill it with somebody, we advertise that out, and then candidates apply. So reverse job board. It wasn't really set up for any of that very well. I mean, it's like the very, very MVP of that idea. And I've been kind of doing what I can with what's there without investing too much time, energy, money into it. And I kind of hit this point a couple of months ago. I think we were chatting about it, Stephen, and you'd mentioned a few things, and it really made me think, this isn't the idea that's going to work for this platform with the amount of energy that I've got to put into it. It really needs to be a different model. It needs to be probably something that people already know, businesses already understand, rather than me having to try and educate them in like this new way of doing it or a different way of doing it and convincing them. It's like, yeah, if anyone's going to come and say, oh, I want to do this, it's going to be, I just want to post the job ad on there and let people apply, like that's the super easy version of this thing for the business to do. So that's what it's going to be. But it's not going to be like a Laradevs or other well-known job boards, where the jobs are publicly facing, because one, I mean, that's already well cornered by Laradevs and plenty of other job boards. But I think the opportunity lies here with the fact that the developers are pre-vetted. So I've gone through a vetting process with them, and it means that if you advertise into the platform and it's only to those accepted profiles, then my logic says, hopefully, you're going to get better quality of like applications to that.
Right.
That you're not going to get like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of applicants that are like drops. And I don't mean that unfairly to anybody, but some people don't spend a lot of time putting a lot of effort into their applications, and that the load of that work then lands in the hiring manager or the HR person in the business, who's now got to sift through all of those and find the diamonds in the rough. So hopefully this will help to cut through some of that by really limiting the scope of who it reaches out to, and find a sweet spot somewhere in there of like the intersection of people with the right skills and experience and at the right sort of price point, cost wise in terms of salary or whatever. And it not being too many, but also not being too few people that are applying. So that's the plan over the next, I don't know, I think it will take a month or so to build that out and get it out there. We'll see what happens. What do you think of it though?
Nice. I like it. I mean, I think whenever we were talking about it, whatever time ago, in my perspective for a platform like Laradevs, the cart and horse problem, the employers are the horse. Like, you need the money, the pool of money available from employers to attract the talent, right? The developers, and to get like really good ones. But that is just essentially the catalyst, like the employers and their jobs and that opportunity. If that is there, the devs will come and the platform can grow, and you can just have like an excellent pool of talent available. But I really do think that getting employers and like opportunity for the devs is the key, right? And so whatever we can do to kind of make that happen will be really, really good. And especially, I mean, I do really, really like this idea because I do know how hard it is to find the right person to hire. And so being able to put something up there and then just have like, I'd much prefer to have 10 extremely high quality applicants to go through and interview and stuff like that than 600 that are like, the same 10 might be within that 600, but boiling down to that is so like, man, go ask Dave at Userscape, right? Like how they're so much time can be invested.
The risk is that you're going to miss them, and
you'll
never see them, and you'll never know that they're good. And so it's improving the odds a little bit, I guess, is the goal. And I think that's worth something. I don't, it's not necessarily hundreds or thousands of dollars, but I think it's a starting point, and we'll see. Hopefully a few more teams come on board with that. I've already got a few teams on there. I would just like that to grow a little bit. And I think this is one of the ways. It's just make it easier for the teams to do the things that they want to do in the way that they want to do it, rather than me trying to tell them this is how I want you to do it, which is what I feel like I've been doing at the moment.
Yeah. And this is, maybe we'll get Shane's input on this because I can't remember if we've talked about this with him. So this might be an idea that's unknown to him.
Thank
yet,
you.
But,
I'm glad I'm so memorable.
Go ahead. Well, I was just going to say, like, the other piece to this was to make it possible for employers to post opportunities for the devs, but then maybe eventually combine that with some features on the platform that would allow devs to pre-interview in a way. So they could do a few things to like jumpstart what the traditional interview process goes. It's like if they could record a short 5-minute intro video about themselves, you can immediately pick up like, okay, how are their communication skills? What languages are they, not literally programming languages, but like what communication languages are they familiar with? Because Laradevs is a global platform. And maybe eventually go into doing a little bit more technical stuff with them that like we could help them perform like man, as an employer that has tried to hire people before, if I had the chance to receive an application, but also watch a snapshot of like a pair programming session that they had done, so I can just see how they think, see how they work through a problem and like what they're actually capable of doing. But like that was just like an attachment to their resume. That would have been so amazing, because then I don't have to try to schedule this stuff and figure all this out. It's like I can literally be doing whatever and just having that going and immediately sift through a lot of this stuff. So Shane, I'm kind of curious. I don't think we've talked about that aspect of it before with you. Do you have any thoughts on this kind of work through the first few pieces of an interview process ahead of time? So it's just a part of the profile of certain devs that employers could tap into?
No, I'm just kidding.
Excellent podcast
Well,
content.
I mean, while you're saying this, I'm thinking also, so I'll chime in on that specifically, but also like, I think it's interesting to give some nice tools for the person conducting these pseudo interviews, or just like just ways to organize these. So say you get 15 videos coming in, and maybe like some Trello board or something where you can say, hot candidate, warm candidate, no, trash this guy or whatever. Or lady, could be lady, Laradevs, right? So I think that would be some organization around that, or like some sticky notes, or asking peers for their feedback on what you saw, noticed, whatever. There could be some tooling around that as well, which I've not seen done before. I'm also not super into the hiring of candidates, so there's some tools for that, or some. But if it's all inside of the same platform, I think that would add some value to it. As far as like video interviews, I think the more specific that somebody is with the criteria of what they want to see in that, the better.
Right.
I think that it would be interesting for, just like on a more generic part of the profile that you could do now, Simon, is having people do a little 5-minute intro video, and they could be as creative as they want to with that, and that might show some of their expertise as well, right? So just allowing, it's a 2-minute or a certain file size or something like that, upload, or maybe it's just a link to a private YouTube or unlisted YouTube video or something like that, right? So but there's all the hosting around that. I'm always thinking of security and hosting and costs for these things. But yeah, I think that would be interesting, as well as like if there's certain criteria, you're putting the power. So this is in my mind, and I'm a little bit rambling, but not really. Just go with me for a minute. There's the putting the power in the applicants. I'm sorry, in the hiring managers' hands, of they have all of these qualified whatever, and they can choose to pull the trigger on any one of these or multiple and hire them, bring them in. As a freelancer, I want to tip the scales in my favor, right? Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I mentioned in just a private conversation with Simon a while ago was like, I would love to say, look, I'm looking for 20 to 30 hours a week. This is my hourly rate. This is the kind of work that I've done before. Let me see everything that matches that criteria. And like, it would be just so nice to like sign up for something and like, all right, you got these hours. It's hard to do that because the people that are actually paying the money need to know that I'm good and qualified, etc. And I think that's something that Laradevs brings, is Simon's is like just actual hands-on looking at, like, reviewing these applicants himself, right? These profiles himself. And I am kind of curious at what your criteria is. What kind of person don't you allow into the platform? And is there any way to like maybe do a star review or like a star rating on your take? Like Simon says this guy's a 4.5 stars, or something like that. There's a lot of juice there that we could talk about. But
oh man, you touched on so many things there that I want to talk about. I don't
it's
think
Friday
we're gonna
night.
have time.
I mean, may as well.
Let's start with like the Simon Says thing. That should definitely be a segment in this podcast.
Yes.
Someone should have come up with that idea and put it on a Notion board someplace.
Goodness.
If only that were in
so
place.
Great. So videos, I think that's a huge part. I think that like the problem is that not everyone's going to do it. So in terms of democratizing, I think one of the things that I've done, not necessarily I've done, but that's on the platform right now, is that there's some level of democratizing profiles, right? So you can be a junior dev in Outer Mongolia, sort of I'm the only person in my community who knows Laravel. I've only been doing it for a short period of time, but I'm up there with, some well-known prominent developer in the community who is, on Twitter with thousands and thousands of followers, and their profile shows like beneath yours on the site. But you might not be comfortable doing video, and they are. And it's like, well, now where it's tipping in someone else's favor. And, one of the things
it could be a screen share though, too. It doesn't have to be just video of their face or whatever. You know what I mean? They can just show you some projects that they worked on, some GitHub repos that maybe are private that they don't want to show the public, but they don't mind sharing in this capacity. I don't think that's a hindrance.
That's a really creative solution to that. And I think that some people will do stuff like that. I've got the other problem of having to review video. Like I already can only spend a few minutes reviewing profiles because it's a time-intensive task. And adding video to that, and like even if I set caps, I said it cannot be more than 2 minutes. That's still 2 minutes for every profile that decides to do that on top of the other stuff that I've got to do. So and remember that developer profiles, they're not paying. I don't want to force developers to pay to use the platform, because again, democratizing it is really, I think, the thing that makes sense. It also benefits the developer. I think that's a key tenet for me to stick to, because it's free. Adding more and more time to my workload for free is quite hard. So some of those things I've got to be really, really careful about. Just, it's like easy to introduce. Even with a few simple rules, it might be like principally fine, but if it suddenly causes me to have a headache, it's not fine. I've got to think about how much time I can afford to spend on all of this stuff. So it's something I'd love to do.
I'm going to say the opposite. Maybe I'm a little bit more of a capitalist, but I feel like this is sort of the stuff that would be perfect for like a pro dev profile. They could just be like a small extra amount, but like, because like, again, you don't have to do any of this stuff. Just like if you're applying for a job, you can have a very simple resume and put like almost no effort into it. It's just the hiring person is probably going to pick up on that. And if you have a person that created a custom one-off website to apply for a web development job, and they recorded like an 8-minute Loom video of a screen capture of like, hey, this is a project I've done in the past that's like got similar stuff to what your company is doing. Therefore, I kind of know what I'm doing. It's just you're taking the effort to elevate yourself, which in the grand scheme of things, like helping, I think a lot of developers, especially that are trying to do freelance or remote work and etc., like actually helping them do that in a really good way is an excellent form of kind of like giving back to the community, right? Like,
totally
people
agree.
were saying this on Ian Landsman's Twitter a bunch when he was hiring for a new position at Userscape, and he was like, all of these devs that are sort of getting into the industry, or they just haven't done the hiring process a whole lot, they're like, yes, please share with us what you're actually thinking about in your mind when you say yay or nay to an applicant, because that will help me tremendously for every single job I'm going for into the future. And so I feel like there's a little bit of that component that, like, even though you might, because there could be a lot of time involved here on a traditional platform, it's actually the employers that becomes a help in this regard, right? It's almost like them choosing to look at or hire people is a form of a signal of a high quality candidate. This is like when Google, you click on a link on Google, Google takes that as a trigger of like, oh, that was a good search result and they stayed on the page. Oh, okay, it was a good piece of content. You actually get that a little bit. But for what you're trying to do, you don't get that ahead of time. You would have to review some of this stuff. But I mean, yeah, if it were the type of thing that, somebody like Shane that's been doing freelancing a lot and is like, good at a lot of this stuff, like for him to pay a tiny bit extra to have this premium
blue check
kind of
mark
pro account so that he could do a lot of this extra stuff to really stand out would be good. And it could even be the type of thing that, like, if you really wanted to keep it democratized, either one, make some of the features just open, and it's only like, okay, yeah, if I'm literally going to have to sit down and do an hour-long pair programming session with somebody to let them put it on their profile, like we're going to need a little bit of a kickback here because now you're talking about a serious investment. So but I don't know. I think that, yeah, that could be really cool and just help people stand out. And then like, that would be like, this would be incredible. That alone, maybe I'm totally pulling this out of my buttocks, but like having that profile with those, like, just, here is kind of what I'm capable. Here's my actual like work profile that's beyond what I can represent on LinkedIn. And then using that to apply for a job that may or may not even be on Laradevs would also be like tremendously helpful.
Yeah,
It's
that's
just
true.
like, man, this is what so like, it would be great to have that from a Laradevs position. But if something else did come up and you're like, look, if you really want to like immediately see what I'm capable of doing, here's my Laradevs profile. Boom. That's pretty powerful too.
So, my brain does this, all right, and then my other side of my brain is like, just wait, you'll have your turn to talk, and then you can say what you're thinking, and then the other part of my brain is like, that's a dumb idea, don't even, or you come up with too many ideas, maybe people like your anyway.
We have
So
no
here's
listeners. Yeah, Shane, just say
that's
whatever's on
true.
your mind.
Well, there are like 7 in my head, so uh so this, all right, so paying for the blue check mark kind of thing, or these pro tools kind of for the, just to have this higher end um profile that should make you stand out. There could also be like a concierge service. I'm using those words, you can call them what you want, but what if
Yeah.
I paid $100 to have Simon or someone of the likes that Simon has approved to do some sort of job that will look over my profile, give me
Yes.
pointers, tips, suggestions. What would make me more hireable? Do I need more links? Do I need more private or public repos that showcase more front end work or something like that, right? Like very specific. And maybe that's a monthly thing, maybe that's an annual subscription thing, or maybe that's ongoing, or maybe it's a one off and it's not $100. It might be more than that because you're actually giving them real feedback from somebody that really hires people and works with hiring people, and you're going to get jobs now. It's worth $500 or $1,000 or whatever because
Yeah.
I'm guaranteed to get some work, at my rate. So something else to throw into the mix.
I
Yeah.
mean, I'm very cautious about guarantees, but yes, that's,
No,
that's
yeah, I
good.
wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't say that necessarily, but there can be some. There can be some. Look, like this places you ahead of 82% of the Laradevs that are on the platform, right? Because you've done these things, and I know that these employers are looking for these things. So something like that.
Yeah.
There's ways to monetize this from your perspective, and there's, like I said, I'm always trying to be the, how do I put the power back in my hands as a freelance developer? How do I have the edge over other candidates? Number one. Number two, how do I show that I am, and it's more than just work experience. A lot of that is culture fit, personality. I think it was Pavlas yesterday said, sometimes you don't get the job just because people don't like you,
Yeah.
something to that effect. It's true. I mean, you have to have it has to match. It doesn't have to even be a great personality. It just has to match the one of the people that you're going with. You could have all of the other criteria requirements, experience, etc., but sometimes it's just not a fit. It's like a dating app. We should do like swipe left, swipe right kind of thing on,
You're gonna say that,
right?
Yeah. I think that there's a lot of ways to, I like the like framing you provided there, Shane, like a concierge service sort of. Cause like, yeah, I mean, again, it's just tapping into the experience that Simon and others involved could give back to some of these devs to help them out. And like, look, like not everything is equal, right? Like, if you are a junior dev that's just getting in and like you either don't have the available money to do some of this stuff, or I'm trying to think of like keeping it very an option for democratized, like Simon is saying. But at the same time, I guess my whole point is like that particular person would also have an attribute, a quality that like the Shanes wouldn't match. And that is that they're probably willing to work for less than $100 an hour. So like that alone is like a huge differentiator, like sort of in their favor in a way, depending on the employer. They can help like balance a lot of that stuff out
Yeah.
naturally in certain situations. And then there's the whole other gigantic idea we have, which is tapping into an instant pool of talent that we help supervise and mentor, and then like using that as an opportunity for developers to gain exposure into all this, have work that they can showcase, et cetera, et cetera. That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, there's a lot of good things that can come out of it, but I think going back to what you said earlier, Stephen, the kind of the horse is the businesses, right? It's those that I've got to get on board with coming into the platform, using it somewhat regularly and getting real value out of it, not just that they're here, but that they're getting some value out of it. And then it's going to lead to all these other things, like the devs are going to come in more. I mean, there's loads of devs coming in now, but I think the problem it's not sticky enough yet because there's not enough other stuff going on there. There's a little bit of communication that I see going on between people. There's a few teams signing up and contacting people, but it needs to be more. It needs to be like feeling like it's alive, and I don't feel like it's alive, so I don't even know how other people feel about it. But and then something like a freelancer who goes, oh, this is worth whatever per month to have my profile be standing out on here is a worthwhile investment because I'm getting work from it. I'm not just having a punt at maybe something will come from it, but they can actually see tangible benefits. It's like it's worth it to keep doing it. That would be a great position to be in my book.
That's a proven model too. Laradevs does that. You pay extra to be featured, have a yellow background, etc. So I mean, that's just a
Yeah, that's easier for the businesses to justify because they just go, oh well, this is it's an advertising spend. We want more applicants to our job. We pay the higher price, like in the hopes that those tricks pull some levers. I think it's slightly different when you get down to the individual, like the developer who's a freelancer. This is my money. This is out of pocket. It's like if this doesn't pull anything in, I'm losing money. It's a little bit harder. Like when the HR or hiring manager just goes, oh yeah, I approve this budget. It's not their money. Yeah.
that just opened up a lot of other ideas. I'll write those down. We'll save them for the next time, I think, because we'll come back to this. I think a lot. I mean, I'll just tease it a little bit. So I have a shelf full of books back here. I tweeted it the other day. Just a lot of things that I get into, like self-help, but like also like personal growth stuff. And one thing that I've been focusing a lot on is I stopped the last couple, maybe a year or so, but I spent like 3 or 4 years just researching tax law and tax entities, and at least U.S. I don't know about Canary Island tax law, but or if they even have any, I don't know. But like some tooling around that, because you're saying, all right, so this is coming out of pocket. Well, if you're structured properly, that's coming out of your business, and it's a tax deductible expense, and it should be. And so there could even be some tooling around like ways, like these developers can now be leads to other resources. There can just be a lot of ways to manage your business as well. And maybe that's crossing some lines there, I understand, but maybe that's another app idea. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, like having other service providers connected through the platform. So you could say, I know an accountant or I know a lawyer in your region who is good for developers, freelance developers to work with. Because it's not always easy to come by some of those recommended resources, I've struggled a lot to find a lawyer here, and even my accountant is like, it's been a pain in the neck, and I don't know, it's just those things. But then it's like, does the platform
Payroll.
cater to, yeah, exactly, all of that stuff. Does the platform cater more to one or the other of the dev who wants to be an employee in a full-time role, the freelancer, or the sort of teams, or specifically not Laravel teams that are part of a SaaS organization, or Laravel teams that are part of a larger something else organization, or Laravel teams that are an agency. There's like all of these different variations,
Sure.
even within the niche, and it's like I can't go after all of them all of the time. I have to kind of pick my battles at the moment, certainly. Maybe in the future that could change, but that future is uncertain until I can get the platform to a break-even kind of point of view. I'm investing a lot in it at the moment with hope. These are all bets that may not come off. In fact, most of them are going to fail, right? That's what the stats tell us. So we'll see.
You could hedge yourself and put this up on Larabets and bet against yourself. Win-win, right?
I think, isn't that illegal?
No, it's hedging. That's what
Yeah.
hedging is.
You can get
Yeah.
these fictitious coins, Simon. He's right. You should definitely do this.
What can I
completely
spend them
for
on?
Money. Absolutely nothing.
God
Developers.
damn it.
Reputation points, glory points. Yeah, but I don't know, man. I just really think that, like, as somebody that's hired before, the process honestly kind of sucks. And so, yeah, making Laradevs have the opportunity for employers to post project or job opportunities will be fantastic. And then that will provide the incentive for the devs to maybe put in a little bit extra effort to advertise themselves, which makes the process a lot easier for the employers, which means more employers want to come, which means more devs want to come. And it's just this big snowball effect.
Hopefully,
and I think that's really, really good. And I do think, like, helping some of these developers with that process is just tremendous. And yeah, I mean, I think there's even, like, maybe I'm thinking way too big, but just in the grander scheme of things, like having a platform that can help developers advertise themselves and, like, elevate their standing in a lot of this will just sort of make the entire Laravel ecosystem more attractive to any business, but a lot of small businesses that are looking to start a new app. And it's, what am I going to use? Like, oh, well, man, I just really like how easy it is to hire Laravel people. So I'm going to go with that route. Cause, like, maybe
I think that's a good point too. Smaller businesses might not want the guy that's got the yellow background with the red border and paying $300 a month to be superstar, selected. They might want a junior dev, right? They might want somebody that they don't mind.
Yeah,
They'll
that's
take
true.
the lower rate and just get somebody to kickstart their project or whatever. And I think that's something we touched on once before too, is wouldn't it be nice to have some sort of hybrid there where you've got 2 or 3 junior devs that you're essentially paying the cost of 1.5 senior developers, but then you have this senior developer once a week to come in for 3 or 4 or 5 hours to just review their PRs and give some feedback on some of their work. It's like a completely different type of job. As opposed to just doing the development itself. Like, I've got years of experience that I can apply, and you can save money, Mr. Company, and get some junior developers and get a big brunt of the work done. And I kind of a project manager kind of role, I guess. I'll just come in on Fridays before you push to production, which you should be doing much more often than that anyway. But and just say, look, this is what you guys should focus on for the next week, in my opinion. This is what you should not have spent so much time on, and this is a good refactor here that you should focus on. Let's go to queues for this instead, and these are the reasons why, and just bring your expertise to their specific, tangible problems.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, I totally agree with that. I think it's all great input. We're when you think about what that model actually is, and that people do that right now, it's team augmentation, right? So you have agencies that act as team augmentation, and they will have like a product manager and a project manager and designers and developers at different levels. And they'll go, right, out of these people, I think you, Mr. Client, need this kind of team, and we're going to bill that out at, you know, some rate every month that covers all of the time that we think those people need to spend on your stuff. And then you don't have the headache of hiring those people and benefits and, you know, sick days and all of that kind of stuff. You just pay us a nice fixed bill. Like, fine. That's okay. I have to ask myself then, is that the kind of business that I want to operate here? I don't know, is my honest answer right now. It could be. Like, I could see it evolving into something like that. I'm very open to it being driven by what people think they want. You know, like if a team comes to me tomorrow, well, tomorrow's Saturday, so hopefully not tomorrow, but Monday, and says, we really like the platform. It's worked well for us. You know, we found a few people. We'd like something a little bit more. I'm open to that conversation, you know, and trying to figure that out. I've had a few of them, but none of them have come to fruition yet. So it's hard to say, but yeah, it's an interesting, like, there are lots of angles and avenues that it could go down, and I'm not going to close the door to any of them, honestly. I think, you know, and I really appreciate you guys giving me some feedback and talking about it so much. But yeah, we'll see how it goes over the next few months. I'm, you know, it's coming up, as I said, to 1 year that I've been running the site. That's kind of a big milestone that it didn't crash and burn after just a few months. And, you know, like I said, it's not making loads of money at the moment, but I feel like I see a path for it to go up. You know, it's not hockey stick, but it's on the way. So yeah, we'll just keep trying new things and see what happens.
Yeah.
Thanks
Well, all
for
right,
your
listener.
input.
Stay tuned for future episodes and see if these ideas pan out or not. I guess we'll see.
Okay.
So we want to shift gears to Laraconnections.
Sure. All right. So I had this idea actually, and I don't know if I told you guys this. 2019 Laracon, New York City. I think it was the first. Well, it was one of the nights. I don't remember what it was, but I had this idea, and it just kind of came. It comes naturally. I mean, every Laracon that I've gone to, and these are the only, honestly, this is the only conferences I attend to Laracon, and I've only been to the 2019 last year and this year, with an obvious gap between.
Same as me.
Really, it's the only 3. Wow. The idea came about of like I see people handing out business cards a lot, and it's like, we're Laravel, right? Like, we're artisans. We, like, everything should be an app, right? It should. And so I was like, how cool would it be if there was like a QR code on my phone and you could just scan that code, or NFC bump, whatever, and it just shares my contact information. And then I took that a step further and was like, well, there could be different personas, I called them. Like, well, what if I'm talking to my neighbor? I don't want to share my GitHub profile with them, you know. I want to share my Facebook, but I don't want to share my Facebook with Simon, you know. Just because I don't really like Simon that well. You just look at my GitHub. But you know, so like you could create these different profiles, right? These different personas, and you select one and then you tap, and then that exchanges the information. And I was working on that. There was I think it's deprecated now. It's deprecated, not depreciated. Please, for the love of God.
Thank you.
Deprecated. Yes. Anyway, it was called so there's React Native, this is Vue Native. It still exists, it still is out there, it still kind of works, I guess, but it was a way to write native iOS, Android apps. I think it had Electron under the hood as well. So I was putting this together. I wrote a Laravel API backend, did some authentication stuff, was able to make it kind of work the way I saw or thought it should be, and published it to Android and Apple Store. And told a few people about it, people that were kind of I'm close with, I respect their opinions, and had little to no positive feedback. And that kind of, and that between that and working, 60, 80 hours a week, it just fell to the wayside. And then, a year later, Apple is like, another $100 this year or whatever it was. And I'm like, nah, just can it. Within a year or so, a number of apps with the same exact idea had come out, and I kind of saw little ads here and there on Facebook. Or I met someone I actually work with now, a client that I work with now. I met him. He was happened to be flying through Charlotte, and we met up for lunch. And he was like, "Here's my contact information." And use this, I think it's called Card with a K. And he just like, "Here you go," and just sent me a link or has scanned a code or something, and it did everything that I was like. So, at Laracon this year, I'm sitting down in the airport on my way home, about to be on my way home, with a couple distinguished names that they know their stuff. They know Taylor personally. They've interfaced with him. I mean, they just very higher up in our community, closer to the top, I guess, if there is such a place. And I was like, man, it would be cool to. Why aren't there QR codes on our name tags, right? Why like, and then it could just be like a link to a link tree, and I could define that on my own when I register, like these are the links that I want. I could log in and update my profile. And that kind of spun into this huge list over the next hour that we're now in a Telegram with a shared notes note, and just coming up with all these different ideas for, well, that could be, if we're digitizing the Laracon experience, I guess is where it comes down to Lara connections. So like for those that haven't been to Laracon, there's for example, you have questions at the end of every speaker. Aaron this year, and I think he did it last year too, he's just on a specific Telegram chat that if you don't know about it, then you don't know about it. If you're in it, then you're in it. But he's like, hey, does anybody have questions for the current speaker? And that's where he gets some of his questions from. I'm sure he comes up with his own as well, but let's digitize that. Everybody at the conference should be able to ask questions without having to know about a certain Telegram channel. And then they could be upvoted, downvoted. And then at the end of each speaker's talk, they can answer those questions. But also the speaker can also jump onto some sort of private chat or chat about his specific talk. Maybe it's not private, but and answer some of these other questions that people didn't get asked on stage. But there's some feedback. There's a good loop there for them. Or take some of the sponsors, right? So there's this. If you're again haven't been to Laracon, you can you get this little, they call it a bingo card. It has nothing to do with bingo, but it's just a card with all of the sponsors' names listed on it. And you go and you talk to each sponsor that you want to, and they can mark their name with their colored marker that they've got. And if you get, I think it was 8 or 9 marks from their sponsors, you drop it in the box, and then Taylor at the end of the conference will pull some random names out and make sure that they have that criteria of 8 or 9 marks, and they get an iPad or Lego Lambo or, these different giveaway things. Why not digitize that? Why? Not only that, but the value that can add to the sponsors, they can scan, and that marks you as the attendee. And now I've also got your information, because I did give my information to a couple different companies, Century for one, that I wanted some follow-up a couple weeks later. I wanted to try their product, and I have no problem giving them some feedback on that. I mean, these are leads for sponsors. I mean, there's so many things. And then I think it was, I can't remember who it was, but they were like, let's also, I mean, after the first day at the conference, me and Simon and Steven, we're all going to go to Mike's Rib Shack across the street at 7 p.m. for dinner, and let's make a public group. And anybody that wants to go, they can say they're coming. And then now it's a noted thing. It's got an address. It's got some attendees. You can see the other attendees maybe that are interested in going, or maybe it's a private thing. Maybe it's just me and Simon and Steven and one other guy want to talk at the bar down the street for a few hours, and we're just saying, hey, here's a mini meetup, right? That's there's like so many different facets to this. So it's kind of it's very reminiscent to me of the I called it Visage. Visage is like your face or like the look on your face. That's what I named the app back in 2019. Um, it's very reminiscent of that. And so I was listening to the North Meets South podcast yesterday, and Laracon AU is doing something very, very close to this. And Michael Dorindo is, yeah. So, and they were talking initially about doing some other totally unrelated to Laracon, sort of, initially it was like, how do we get people's GitHub pictures on their profile pictures on their name tag at Laracon AU? I think that's where it started. And then Jake Bennett was like, well, we're also doing this, we do these other conferences, and, what we thought of was a QR code that we can just hand out at our booth, and then we can just have somebody, I can scan it at our booth, and then I'm talking to Mr. Attendee or Mrs. Attendee, and I can associate their LinkedIn profile now to that QR code. And just having that sort of concept of digitizing attendees, basically, and that lead information and all that stuff. And then I think, and then Michael Dernda came in and was like, so we're actually doing an app this year at Laracon AU, and he went over a number of features. Some of them are things that I thought of that they didn't mention, but the basis is there, and the fact that this is going to be a Laracon promoted app, they're going to get by. I mean, people are just going to start using this. They have like the lineup of speakers, or the scheduling of speakers is listed, and a number of different concepts and ideas that we had. Oh, I should have copyrighted it or something, but not going to happen. So yeah, this is something that I think, Stephen, you mentioned briefly on the last episode, and I was like, no, I don't want this out in the wild yet, just because, I want to take it and I want to run with it. And I've got the models in place. I've got the tests in place. I've got everything short of the UI. And I just bought Flux, and I just talked to Hassan from Simon's recommendation yesterday, right before I was actually on a walk, and I was chatting with him on Twitter, X, and then I got done talking to him and I listened to that podcast. I'm like, are you serious? So I was looking for a designer. I was talking to a designer and was about to pull the trigger to spend some money on a nice design to pitch this to Laracon, So, I did reach out per Steven's suggestion to Michael Dorinda. He responded this morning, my morning. He's in AU, so it's like Friday night, I guess, for him. And he's like, yeah, let's talk after the conference. I just told him basically, I had this idea too. I've got some ideas that maybe you haven't thought of yet. I'd love to collaborate. I just want this to kind of be in people's hands. I think this can separate or distinguish Laracon from other conferences, or it could be used by other conferences too. Like this can be more open to other conferences. And so he's like, let's wait until after the conference, because there's a couple ideas I didn't talk about or mention, and we're so close, I don't want to like add too much more just a month before the conference. And so I've got a pending, penciled in sort of meeting with him coming up soon. That was a lot of information for me to just dump on everybody here. So yeah, I don't know where anybody stands, or if there's, what do you got to say about this, you guys?
Simon, you go first.
Simon says.
A lot,
Simon
man.
says.
For the amount of time that you talked, I reckon I could talk again about all of that. But it's fine. I'm not going to do that, because that's not fair.
What's fair?
The thing that stands out to me is you kind of come across as, I mean, I was gutted for you when you said, oh, they've decided to do something already. But it comes across as like, oh, well, I can't do that now. Is that fair to say? Like, you feel that you couldn't just run out with your own thing that you've already kind of started?
Yes and no. So no, I guess technically no, because my initial thought was like, let's make something, even open source it. Let's put this in the hands of the community. Let's get some feedback. Let's make this thing awesome and polished, and then maybe take the idea to the Rails world or React or Vue or whatever other conferences might this could be applicable for. And maybe not everything is all these features are, like the sponsor markers and all that stuff is not going to be for everybody, right? And so that would take a lot more research and a lot more experience than I've got going to conferences, et cetera. But, there's so many other things. It did take the wind out of my sails, and that's why I feel more free to talk about it now publicly. Just because, I think that I feel the same. And this is where I said, this is a very specific thing that happened to me this time, but this has happened to me with other things in the past, and I'm sure it's happened with other people in the past. And what do you do, just as a general question, when you're working on something, you have this idea for something, and then you see 2 or 3 or 4 other companies do the same thing? Do you continue with it? Do you stop? Do you, there's nothing stopping me from making another card with a K kind of app, right? I could just be their competitor, but there's a bunch of other competitors, and now they've got 6 years of experience of, the problems that they've been solving that I don't even know exist yet. And, yeah.
But you're talking about competitors there who are going after like the whole events industry, right?
Well, that's for any business, the card idea, or anybody that just wants to share their contact information. It's very, very generic.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just wouldn't compare. That's not apples to apples at all on that. You're talking about something very specifically for a niche event, and you built something for what you understand as the general structure of that niche, like the way that Laracons are run and operated, and the kinds of things that happen at that event, the kinds of organizations and people that are at that event, what their expectations are, and all of these things are like boiled into where your idea is. And that's totally different to these other things that exist already on the market that are well-established businesses. So I think that in its own says that you've got an opportunity. The fact that someone else now has come out and said they've done something similar, which you don't really know yet, because unless Michael's shown you what they've done, probably nobody's going to see that until Laracon AU, right? So you'll see soon enough whether or not that does any of the things that you kind of have in mind. And I would just say, like, if you're thinking about it as this would be a cool tool for this community, and I don't mind it being open source, and just see what happens, see how people use it, see who contributes to it, that's fine. That's a good thing. Yeah. Are you prepared to support that and keep developing it? Or would you just throw it out there and just, let the chips fall where they may, and then what? Or did you originally have bigger hopes for what this might become in terms of like a business
initially,
or something?
Yeah, initially. Initially, I think the initial thought was, because of the people that I was having this idea with, they were like, man, if we can get an MVP together, we can put this in front of Taylor relatively quickly. Or without much hesitation, at least pitch him on the concept idea and then see if there's some buy-in officially, right? So that was one of the first statements made after I made the comment of, having QR codes on a name tag, right? So that was, first in my mind. And then it's like, well, this could be well beyond Laravel community. There's other people that do conferences, and there's other sponsors that want to make it easier to gain leads from the conferences that they're paying money to go to, right? So there's a market there. There's absolutely, and that's, you're talking about business money, which is like a lot easier of an ask than just people paying for whatever. And it's easy. People love to, this is my GitHub profile, this is my LinkedIn, this is, Linktree, but also all the other features, benefits that they could gain from, me as, you and I as just attendees. I could scan your code and add you to my friend list, and then follow you directly on Twitter and communicate with you in the Laracon or whatever we call this app directly. You know, there's so many other there's so many other benefits for both sides of the party. So
Yeah.
no, I don't think that it's a complete, like, it just kind of like, what do I do? You know, I'm not sure what to do. I don't know which direction to go.
Yeah. I'm sure it deflated the balloon a little bit for you. But, okay, look, if there's one thing that, like, my little entrepreneur tidbit of the day, right? For any listeners out there, normally I would say competition is actually a really good thing. It validates the market, it provides a little bit of fuel for the fire, and as long as you can think of a way to have a competitive advantage, then competition is a fantastic thing. However, this is one of those rare circumstances that if we were to not quite go to the extent of thinking about how we could apply this concept to lots of conferences and we were just focused on the Laracon idea at the moment, that is a little bit harder because you need the buy-in from the Laracon organizers. And there's really not a need for multiple competing Laracon apps. So they're going to put their support behind one option, and there is just not really a situation where you need more than that. So this is why I told Shane, you know, I think that you had a lot of really good ideas, and if this is something that you're just interested in working on in general at this point, assuming that Mitch and everybody else involved with making the Laracon AU app is cool with it, like just try to get involved with them and see where it can go. And I have a feeling that what we see at Laracon AU won't be the final version. So they're going to want to continue to add stuff to it and go on from there. So, and then depending on how any of that stuff works out, like the whole idea of expanding this out into a broader tech conference app is, to me, a sort of completely different discussion. So
Yeah.
that's my take on it. I wouldn't let it like
Thank
get
you.
you down that much. It just means that you had a
Well,
really good idea.
I think part, and that's, I mean, that's par for the course. I mean, whether it's good or not, I'm always kind of like, yeah. I always kind of second guess my ideas, but then I see, like, it's like that second guessing is what led me to not put a lot of effort into something. And then I see somebody else doing the same thing, and I'm like,
I
I
think
mean,
we've
this has
all
been
been
going
there.
on for years. Yeah. Well, then that's kind of what I wanted to bring up. Like, what do you do in general when this happens? Yes, there's the it's great for other people to tell you, the one that's, you know, crying inside, that's validation. That doesn't help though necessarily. That just kind of makes it sting even more in some ways.
Sure.
You know, because it's like, all right, since Laracon, I've been working on getting some new clients. I've been focused on that. I've spent a handful of hours, 10 to 15 hours on this idea. Should I have been spending more time on, would I feel better if I'd spent more time on it? Would I feel worse if I spent more time on it? And I don't know. And that
Don't
doesn't
look
help
back.
me for
No.
future. Well, that's how you determine what you want to do in the next time, right?
I mean, like, you can't look back and go, oh, I regret spending those hours or not spending those hours. I mean, if you can look on it and go, you know, maybe if I'd spent 20 or 30 hours on it, I'd be at a point where this was, you know, further along and I could have got something out a little bit sooner. But you can't control the market, you know, around. You can't control what other people are doing. Unless you've got an insight into what they're doing, which is really rare, you're not going to know if they might have come out with something sooner. They might never have come out with something. Like, you just can't look back in that way. The thing that you can do on reflecting on it is go, is this something I was really passionate about? And so if I have an idea where I feel like at that level again, would I pull the trigger and still push forward? And because of what I've learned now, this experience, does that mean I'll push a little bit harder to get something done and out there? You know, kind of like use it as the fire, as Stephen said, to
The
stoke the
fuel.
flame of, yeah.
Yeah.
And for that, so just to like reflect on that from my perspective and things that I've done like that, I've built so many things and then somebody else comes out with something else that's the same, better, it's more polished, and I just go, oh, super deflated, I'm giving up. And what that taught me on every one of those occasions is, whilst I had an idea, I didn't really think it through enough. Like, I wasn't into it enough to make it. Because if I was, then I would have pushed and pushed, even though they'd already done something. Now, I'm not saying, like, as Stephen's already said, in this case, to try and do this in a Laravel conference thing and try and compete with another one doesn't make sense necessarily.
No.
But you could take away from this, like, the idea is really good. I still want to build it, but I just know now I'm not going to do it at Laracon. I'm going to try and do it somewhere else. I'm going to go, like you said, Rails World or something like that. You know, I'm going to an adjacent community that I could potentially get involved with, although I'm not already, or find somebody who is, you know, and kind of rub shoulders with them a little bit and see if it's something that they could take to somebody in their community. So I still think there's like ways of looking at it that are really positive, that isn't just like, oh yeah, you know, lessons.
Yeah.
You can build something.
You got unlucky on this one, right? Laracons have been going on for 10 years now. There's now multiple of them a year. So I don't know how many Laracons there have been in total, but like, this is, from what I understand, the first time something like this is happening, and you just happened to like get started on it in parallel with somebody else that you didn't know was doing it after, like, you know, whatever, the 50th Laracon. So that's just also a little bit unlucky, you know? Like, if you had chosen to do this last year, then we wouldn't be having this conversation. So it's just kind of like a little bit of I don't want to say unfortunate, but it's just, yeah, coincidental pulling the trigger, two different groups unknowingly pulling the trigger on the same idea at a very, very similar time. So it's all good. But I really think if you can just like reach out and try to get involved, like, it's still a win for everybody. And I mean, initially, like you had said, you just wanted to get this into people's hands and like use it. So if it happened to be that like you controlled the GitHub repo versus you being able to pitch in a hand to help with this other team, then I mean, the outcome is still pretty much the same. You can just still try to make the best thing that you can, and then maybe consider some grander ideas beyond that.
I would love to see, with the thousands of people listening, watching to us every week, you know, what are some of your takes? Not just, I guess, yeah, specifically to this situation, but also, I would love some feedback from other. Not that I don't value you guys, but let's outsource, open source the feedback here, right?
I'm never going to give you advice again.
Finally,
damn it!
Jeez, got the Brit to shut up. Jeez. That was my strategy all along. No. Snarky. Anyway, I would like to know, like, what just some basic feedback. What have you done in the past? I'd love to see what other people's ideas, like, they've come up with, you know, some awesome idea, and then Facebook released it or something like that. You know, the same concept idea or whatever, just something stolen, the idea. And what do you do with that deflation? Do you reinvest your time back in yourself? Do you go into the corner and cry like I do? Do you start a podcast? What do you do?
You try harder next time. I mean, look, Shane, whenever, like, my early professional career was at a business called TSD Industries, and we developed aftermarket sport bike accessories, which is a niche product market to be in. But this is one of those situations where we were coming out with dozens of products a year. And so undoubtedly, whenever you had like a brand new motorcycle model come out, it was essentially this race to get cool accessories designed, manufactured, and then into people's hands as quickly as possible. So I would say on like a weekly occurrence, we'd have this happen where we would pour engineering time, testing, tens of thousands of dollars to actually manufacture something. And then you're like doing a photo shoot to get your marketing assets for the new product line or product that you're launching. and you see that your competitor is posting on Instagram with an alternate version of what you're about to be announcing yourself. And it's just kind of like it. But it really does. The way to do that is to let that be the fuel for your next idea, and don't sit on it. And if I can, give any sort of extra advice, it's try to get a description, MVP, designs, whatever, to represent your idea that you can take to the stakeholders and get their validation as quickly as humanly possible, so that you can, or even do the wallet test. Will you pay me for this? I literally want your money right now. And get that immediate validation so that you don't accidentally burn a huge amount of time on something that isn't actually going to go anywhere. And so there's that. But yeah, man, don't just next time, don't debate. Just go for it.
I don't think, well, it's not so much that I debated. I just was, I think that was a time constraint for me a little bit, and not wanting to share the idea with the world right off the bat, which could have given me some free hours and other people that want to work on this. And that's another question. At what point do you say, hey, I don't mind this just being an open concept. Let's bring in some other developers that just want to work on it, build in public. And I think that what you were saying with the motorcycle experience, it seems like if that's what their primary source of revenue was, it's what I call in my mind, it's swinging for the fences, right? I'm taking I have ownership in several non-competing companies, or part ownership in several non-competing. If just one of these does half of what they think they're going to do, then it's in my mind, I'm swinging for the fences. I will invest for equity in a company, not all the time, sometimes, or sometimes a hybrid, pay me something up front, but also give me some equity. If any one of these takes off, then I'm fine. And I can support, now I've got the revenue stream to support investing into these ideas. I could have pulled the trigger faster on the design. I could have pulled the trigger faster on hiring 2 or 3 people to, hey, this is the idea, start building it. Let me see your work, every couple of days, and let's get this out there. So it's I'm always swinging for the fences. I just need one of these to go. And because I have these ideas. I've had several ideas just in this conversation today, right? And I always do. I always have something that I want to build.
Stop having ideas. Stop.
I try. You know what I do? When I sleep. And that's not even true, because I wake up and I'm like, oh, let's, no, it's just the way I am. And I like that. But sometimes there are you end up in sometimes imposter syndrome, sometimes in just not sure which direction to go to start something. Wishing that I had more guys like you, for example, that I've just can collaborate with faster, easier. I've realized in the last few years that it takes kind of I can't do the things that I want to do and get to where I'm wanting to go in life on my own. It has to be I might know how to do everything, but I can't do everything. And I just physically can't do it. So yeah, I think maybe that could tie back into Laradevs somehow. Finding other developers that I'm not an employer. I just want to start something. And are you interested?
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the things I added to profiles quite early on was are you open to collaboration? To try and encourage some of the dev to dev comms rather than devs to teams. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter what platform you use to do that. I think the thing to do there is to just you've got to be around other developers. You have to build up a relationship with people. You have to build trust, right? You're not just going to jump into, sorry for the vernacular, you're not going to just jump into bed with them just after you meet them at one conference, and go, yeah, well, let's do business together. You need to have a bit more time than, stolen moments during coffee breaks or the the after parties or whatever. It's got to be you're having chats and then you're discussing things and you're talking about business and you're talking about not business, and then you're getting into that rapport that is the foundation of doing something good. Because if you just do it off the back of like a little bit of a relationship, like the starting sparks, let's say, it's the same as a romantic relationship. In some respects, it's not going to last if you jump in after the first date. You're like, let's move in together. Yeah, it's like, so yeah. I think maybe we've talked about this before, or I've talked about it before somewhere. The same as you, Shane, that you've got to, that 1 + 1 does not equal 2. If you build the right relationships with people, you find good people who are keen to do similar things and solve similar problems. 1 + 1 could be 10 or more.
It's like the oxen synergy principle. Have you heard this? So I don't remember the exact numbers, but there's like, they say like one oxen. Which one's a plural? Does anyone know?
I don't know the words you're using right now.
You know what an ox is? It's like a cow, but bigger.
Oh yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Oxen.
Yes. Oxen is the correct. Yes.
All right. So is that the plural, or is ox the plural? A single oxen, 2 ox. Anyway, now it's not even a word in my mind. All right. But one of them can pull, like, I think it's like, don't mark me on the numbers, but it's like 3,800 pounds or something like that. I don't know what the kilograms are for everybody else. Half of that ish. 2, you would think, can pull 7,200, but it's like 13,000, right? It's this synergy. It's this, when you're step in step and you're have an equal driving force. It's 1 can accomplish 1, 2 can accomplish 5 kind of concept. Oxen synergy principle. Yeah.
That makes sense.
I just call it the gym bro
There you
phenomenon.
go.
Or like I mean, at least for me, like now that I've been doing some stuff, like I just I want the other person to provide that motivation. Like,
Yeah.
I'm counting on them, they're counting on me. It's that extra little bit that I needed to get to the gym that day, like figure out that feature that day.
It's a beautiful thing.
And bring stuff to the table. So, and sharing ideas. I mean, it's like you can get really pigeonholed into thinking in one particular direction. And like, I've had so many situations where I've thought about problems and all of these things like for a long, long time. And then I'll have one conversation with my wife that is just coming about it from such a completely different perspective that I'm like, you're totally right. Like, I didn't think about that particular aspect of it. I do this right now with Backer Club and my business partner. And like, I'll be going, we'll even something as simple as looking at a crowdfunding project and like what we think about it. And like, I'll have one particular perspective, but I'm approaching it as an engineer and very kind of maybe more technical standpoint. And then he's looking at it from a completely different perspective. And so just having that synergy, like you're saying, is extremely valuable when trying to do things. So anyway, are we good to wrap up that particular?
Yeah, I was going to say, where are we on time in general?
We're at 1 hour and 30 minutes again.
All right. Well,
guys, we are good at just
talking, flapping our gums. Yeah.
It's all right. We'll just cut out that entire section and then it'll be back to 45 minutes.
Perfect.
Who wants to figure out an outro on the spot here really quick?
I'll do it.
Perfect.
So, like, if you enjoyed any part of this podcast, chances are other people in the world that you might know or know you also would. So if you could share the tweet, like the YouTube, all of the sharing, things that everybody else asks for, that would be greatly appreciated. And yeah, looking forward to the next time we talk about
Simon writing a book.
Ooh, what Simon really says.
Oh my gosh.
That's what I want to hear about. But for now, gentlemen. Oh.
Yeah.
Well, you're not sure about that one?
Go.
That was a fantastic outro. Let's just wrap it up there. Gentlemen, till next time.
Till next time.